All right, my friends, Hotspot continues right here on KUM, and thank you so much for watching. Now, it is a tradition here on your mid-morning show that, of course, every Monday we give you a look at the weather, and typically we bring on Landon Aydlett, but we are switching it up a little bit. We're going to bring in the Dinga. We're going to bring in his twin brother, Brandon, who is actually the older one. So Brandon joins us now from his office at the National Weather Service. Brandon, always good to see you, man. Half a day.
Likewise, half a day. Good morning, and how's everybody doing?
We are doing fantastic over here. I mean, we have been blessed with amazing weather. I think I've only been rained out when I go outside to exercise once in the last week. And so we're sitting pretty over here. But, you know, there was an advisory, I must ask you, that came out from the folks over at Homeland Security and Civil Defense last week. And they were saying that there may be some tropical disturbances that may be passing through the region. And it's expected, perhaps, that likelihood thing, to bring a lot of the wet stuff our way this week. Is there any indication that that may be true?
That's right. And so we had discussed that in the office here. We're looking at a number of disturbances that are just kind of going to be parading through the region. And for mid-August, that is quite on par with what we see this time of year. As wet season takes a deeper hold across the region, and we start seeing more disturbances move through. And this time of year, there's more moisture content available in the atmosphere. And also some of these disturbances have a better chance of surviving several days. Some of them become slightly better developed, and then a few of them go on to continue developing, eventually becoming tropical depressions or even tropical storms. But fortunately, right now, there are no major candidates to develop into a tropical storm, although we have seen some recent tropical cyclones far to our west and far to the northwest, as we just saw a tropical storm graze along the southern coast of Japan the past couple of days. But let me take you out, switch my camera around and show you a little bit of the latest satellite and radar. And right now, across the Marianas, we are quite dry, as Jason alluded to. There's not a whole lot of rain to speak out about. We just have the typical small showers, nothing that's going to really soak you. If you have a shower over your head at the moment, just wait a few minutes, it'll clear out. But if we look at the satellite, it's pretty dry out there. We do have some cirrus clouds kind of blowing off from the north. That has kind of diminished the bright kind of penetrating sunlight that would really kind of heat you up during the daytime. But that cirrus is going to eventually blow off to the south. It's going to thin out, and we're going to see more of that blue sky popping up later on today. But as I mentioned just a moment ago, we're seeing some of these disturbances across the region. And so Guam is right here in the middle of your screen. We have a large disturbance that pushed up to the northwest out of Palau and Yap region. And I would just pan the camera over, or at least the satellite over. This system is going to keep on pushing up into the northern Philippine Sea. It will have no bearing on the Marianas weather. However, we're going to shift over to the southeast. And so there's Guam and the Marianas in the top left corner. And then Chuuk State is right here in the middle. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out to you. We have been mentioning, well, last week we had a couple of marine weather statements. We had some special marine warnings, wind gusts with some thunderstorms. And so we actually see the evidence of that right now in satellite. And so with this pile of the cloud cover right here, let me see if my finger is there. We can get my finger on the screen. There's a little line of clouds that's running ahead of these thunderstorms, and those clouds are shooting out pretty fast. We see that quite often, and of course, the past several weeks, we've seen a number of these events over the Marshall Islands, having brought 30, 35 knot wind gusts over the coastal waters. So that's something that we're watching out for Chuuk. But there's also the possibility we could see some of that later on this week across the Marianas. Right now, we are in the dry wedge across the region, and we're going to stay fairly dry for the next couple of days. But this disturbance is going to shift to the west, and we could see a disturbance taking root just along the west side of the Marianas in the latter half of the week. So what do we expect with that? Ultimately, we could see winds coming up a little bit stronger in the beginning Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, and then the rainfall potential will definitely be increasing. So right now it's still pretty early in the game. Only one computer model is showing any substantial rainfall for the Marianas. However, the other models still show a bit of a surface trough across the region. So we're not too particularly concerned, but it's something that we are watching for the potential for additional development. But as we see anything start to take more concrete shape, we'll definitely be communicating that very widely here on social media and with all of our government partners at Civil Defense. But right now, the latest forecast, we are still looking at fairly calm sea conditions. We're looking at combined seas of 3 to 5 feet for the next several days. Great conditions in the surf. Just a moderate risk of rip currents of 3 to 5 foot surf on the east side of the islands. And then otherwise, we're looking at 1 to 3 foot surf along southwest and north facing reefs. But always keep in mind, if you're out there on the beach and the bays, use the buddy system. Make sure somebody knows exactly where you are at all times, and practice safe boating and safe swimming practices. Otherwise, that's all I got for you weather-wise. Jason, any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, is there any indication? Because I mean, I totally appreciate, the fact that you're breaking this down in a very palatable form. Like, it's super easy for like a noob like me, when it comes to understand weather and what we can expect. But Brandon, do you have any indication that if those systems, I mean, they may or they may not develop, but the fact that you said they are expected to contain somewhat heavy rains, I'm already thinking, some of the things that are common here, even if we're not in full-on storm mode, there could be parts of the island, typically in the south, that may flood. There may be certain roadways that become impassable. There may be utilities concerns that, like the folks say, if it gets very, very windy, trees may become compromised or anything. Is there any indication at this point, Brandon, that those systems contain that kind of strength or could impact us in those ways?
Good question. Well, right now, we're not seeing anything that will be offering those conditions, long-lived situations, so multiple hours of strong winds. But with some of these showers and thunderstorms that could be heavy at times, just those infrequent, short-lived gusts could definitely bring some limbs down. So it's always advisable for residents to look around your yards, look around your neighborhoods. GPA does have a hotline. Sorry, I don't know the number right off the top of my head right now, but they do have a hotline that people can call in. If there are limbs that are brushing against power lines, they've got crews working every day. I wouldn't say 24/7. They've got to rest at some point, but they do have GPA crews that are out there working on mitigating some of the trees that could come into contact with the power lines and ultimately affect the power storage or power use across the island. But otherwise, what other things can residents do? Communicate with your local mayors. Do you have clogged storm drains? And even today, we had some heavy showers just pushed through Tamuning very quickly, no more than 10 minutes, but there was standing water. There was just a torrent of water running down the road, Challenge San Antonio. And it takes a while for the drains to recover from that. Even if the drains are clear, it's just the tropical rainfalls can come down very heavy, very intense, and even a quick shower will result in some standing water that the drains just can't keep up with, just the nature of the beast. Right. So communicate. That's the most that we can do. Communicate with the local government, with the mayor's offices, and as a team, we can definitely mitigate some of these long-standing effects of the weather.
Okay, well, Brandon, you were mentioning using the buddy system, and that is something here, like at KUM, we absolutely agree for safety. It's just a smarter thing to do, right? So I'm going to be your buddy, and since you mentioned GPA's number, that number, I actually Googled it. So if you need to put in a trouble call, like Brandon was just saying, very, very good tip. Their number is 671-475-1472. That number again, 671-475-1472 or 3 or 4. If you see anything like, down power lines, first of all, stay away from them. Second of all, please put that call in because GPA will get right on it. And also, shrubbery, trees, branches, anything that may occlude, in the middle of the street in somebody's house. And if for whatever reason you think that anything's out of the ordinary, just give the good folks at GPA a call and they'll set you up.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So one thing I do want to ask, Brandon, now you are a meteorologist, you study weather systems and everything. And I got to ask you, I am not. I've said I'm a noob before, I'm getting better with you and your brother's help, as well as everybody over there at the NWS, right? One thing I've never been able to figure out, man, is why you guys always say it's between 2 to 4 inches of rain expected. I can bring out like a cup and that thing can be filled in, in in 30 seconds, and that's like at least 6 inches. So what does that mean when you guys say a certain number of inches of rainfall?
Yeah, well, let me just draw this out for you. And so I'm just drawing a quick little chart. And so it's a little bit of statistics. I hope you can read this okay, but it's like
The
making a
sine
bell
curve.
curve. So yeah, and so the teachers kind of work with bell curves on occasion, and I've benefited and not benefited from bell curves in the past. But so I got 2 to 4 inches right there in the center, and so we're looking at a lot of computer models. And when it comes to the nature of tropical rainfall, there's a lot of variability with tropical storms, typhoons. Even with typhoons, you get hit by the eye wall of a typhoon, and location just 3 miles away, we'll see a completely different amount of rainfall. So in some of the past tropical cyclones, we saw 24 inches of rain in one portion of Guam in a single day. And then just a few miles away, 15, 16, 17 inches, considerably less. I mean, it's a substantial amount of rainfall, but it changes with very small distances. And outside of tropical cyclones, we get these thunderstorms, and we're looking at thunderstorms all over Micronesia. And we look at the subsequent rainfall observations, and we're astounded often how little rainfall was measured. But often that is because the thunderstorm might look that big on satellite, but the actual thunderstorm, the really heavy rain, is just a small little dot in that cloud cover. So it's hard to see in my finger depiction. So that might be the thunderstorm, and the heavy rain is just on one little spot. And we can use the satellite imagery to see where those coldest cloud tops are that signify the strong uplifting motion. That's what the heavy rains are. And so quite often, in the cloud is where the rain gauge was, and it just got light rain. So we do see that highly variable rainfall amount across these disturbances. And as we go into 3, 4, 5 days out time frame, there's really no, if anybody were to say they could give you an exact estimate of rainfall, they would be lying to you. 3 to 5 days out, even a well-formed disturbance is really hard to predict, because unless it is a typhoon, it could easily fall apart in 3 to 5 days. So a surface trough that we're tracking near Wake Island that is expected to come near the Marianas, well, what is the nature of its convective potential? Is it going to be a thriving thunderstorm producer, or is it going to go into a cyclical pulse where for 6 hours active thunderstorms, and then 12 hours it's kind of dissipated, and then it resurges another 6 hours later? And we see that a lot. And so the way we try to communicate these potentials is talk about this feature that is moving through the Marianas, and then we try to relate that to the potential for heavy rainfall. And so a lot of times we have seen very heavy rainfalls estimated in the radar imagery just offshore, and signifying the case that we have missed out on some significant flooding, which is a good thing. There was a case that we had issued a flash flood warning for Yamatic. This was about a year ago. We saw some very heavy showers pushing up from the south. We issued a flash flood warning to go ahead and get that warning out to the mayor and the folks down south. And eventually the rainfall dissipated just before it came on shore. They did get some heavy rain, but the rain gauges down there indicated only about 1.5 inches of rain. Meanwhile, closer to Cocos Island, about 1.5 miles offshore, the radar indicated about 4 or 5 inches of rain, which is a substantial difference. And so a lot of times these systems do deliver, but we're fortunate that they deliver just offshore.
Very interesting. Okay, Dan, thank you, because I always wondered, what that was in terms of like volume and how it's measured and everything like that. Okay, I understand so much better right now. So Brandon Aydlett over at the National Weather Service, bringing you your work week weather forecast. Before I let you go, right, one more thing on the buddy system. I know a buddy of yours, actually a mutual buddy of ours, is coming up next year in the hotspot. Max Ronquillo, both of you have done so much for the island in terms of like music. You both worked with the Guam Territorial Band for years. He's coming up next, so I want to give you the opportunity to send a shout out to your boy and just like say hi.
Yes, good morning, Max. It's good to have a tag team with you this morning. Saw you yesterday at the rehearsal, And yeah, Max is up to this deep working with the Miss Saigon, so he's doing a fantastic job working with the orchestra, the singers. We've got a great, talented set of cast members, and without taking too much of his thunder, I'll turn it over to you two.
Well, speaking of thunder, very well put from a weather guy. But you both have made very, very amazing sounds, amazing, like as they say, make a joyful noise unto the heavens and everything. And you guys have made a name for yourselves both doing that. So we appreciate both of you, and we're coming right back with Max. So Brandon, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it.
Y'all take care. Thank you.
All right, Max Ronquillo coming up right here on the Hot Spot.